She walked into the car dealership wearing simple jeans and a white t-shirt, inquiring about a luxury car. The salesman looked her up and down with a disdainful gaze. The other employees chuckled, and the customers stared at her. Her face turned red with embarrassment, and she left without saying a word. The next morning, a sleek Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up in front of the dealership. When the back door opened, the salesman's jaw practically hit the floor. He never saw this coming. Boston Luxury Motors sparkled under the morning light. The glass walls showcased a lineup of supercars that most people could only dream of. Porsche, Bentley, Aston Martin, Ferrariac, one more expensive than the last. Ellie Whitmore, or Maggie, as those who knew her called her, walked through the door, her brown ponytail gently bouncing with each step. Her plain white t-shirt, worn jeans, and minimal makeup reflected a woman who valued practicality over appearances. At 35, she carried the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly who she was. What wasn't immediately visible beneath her simple appearance was the fact that Maggie was the founder and director of the Whitmore Foundation for Children with Disability, a nonprofit that had changed the lives of thousands of children. Even before meeting her current husband, she had built the foundation from the ground up, pouring her heart and her expertise in special education into making a real difference. As she stepped into the showroom, her eyes immediately landed on a midnight blue coupe 40th birthday gift for her sister, Caroline, who had just beaten breast cancer. Maggie wanted to give her something truly special, and she could easily afford it. However, across the room, Franklin Monroe's sales manager spotted her. Taking in her modest clothing, he smirked at a colleague as if he were about to watch a comedy unfold. "A good morning," Maggie smiled, her voice warm but composed, as she stepped further into the gleaming showroom. The scent of polished leather and fresh wax lingered in the air, mingling with the soft hum of jazz playing faintly from hidden speakers. Her heels clicked confidently against the marble floor. A young employee, no more than 22, approached with professional poise and a practiced smile. Her name tag read Jackie in elegant script. "Welcome to Boston Luxury Motors," she said, straightening her blazer and folding her hands politely. "I'm Jackie. Is there a particular model you're interested in, ma'am?" There was no trace of condescension in her tone, just eagerness and the quiet rhythm of someone trained to read people quickly. But for a split second, her eyes flicked over Maggie's worn handbag and modest coat, betraying the silent calculation that so often lived in showrooms like this. Maggie simply kept smiling. Before she could answer, Franklin stepped in, cutting Jackie off. "I'll handle this, Jackie," he said, turning to Maggie with a forced smile. "Are you looking for directions, miss?" Maggie remained perfectly polite, her smile unwavering, as she replied with quiet confidence, "I'd like to see that midnight blue coupe over there." She extended a gloved hand and pointed to the sleek 285-0 vehicle displayed on the raised platform beneath a ring of soft spotlights. The coupe gleamed like a sapphire in a sea of chrome, all curves and precision, its body catching the light in a way that turned heads without trying. It was the kind of car people didn't ask about unless they already knew they could afford it. Jackie blinked, her practiced poise faltering for just a fraction of a second. Her gaze flicked from the car to Maggie, then back again, recalculating. "Of course," she said quickly, smoothing the front of her blazer. "That's the limited edition DBX Coupe handcrafted interior, twin-turbo V8 engine, a personal favorite." But as she gestured toward the platform and began walking, she couldn't help but glance once more at Maggie's worn coat, now unsure of who, exactly, she was serving. Franklin gave a strained laugh. "That's the limited edition Azure. Only 15 of those were made this year. Perhaps I should direct you to our pre-owned section. It's about 3 blocks down." Despite being dismissed, Maggie remained patient. "I'm genuinely interested in learning more about this one. Would it be possible to see the interior?" Franklin grimaced, The Azure is available by appointment only, he lied smoothly. At that moment, a well-dressed couple walked in. Franklin immediately shifted his demeanor. "Excuse me," he said, turning eagerly to the couple. "So lovely to see you again, Mr. and Mrs. Harrington." Jackie glanced at Maggie, a bit uneasy. "Would you like me to tell you more about the Azure?" "Yes, thank you," she replied. Franklin was now opening the door of the Azure, inviting Mrs. Harrington to sit inside the very car he had claimed was by appointment only. Maggie calmly stepped forward. "Excuse me, I'd like to inquire about purchasing this vehicle." Franklin replied coldly, "As I said, this car is currently being viewed by other clients. Perhaps you should come back another year. Check out the pre-owned section." "I'd like to buy this car as a birthday gift for my sister," Maggie said, still composed. Franklin stepped closer. "I understand some people like to daydream, but this is a place of business. You're interrupting a real deal." "I can pay in cash today," Maggie replied. Franklin burst out laughing, trying to humiliate her. "Really? This isn't a flea market. People who can afford this kind of car don't dress like you." Her face turned red not from embarrassment, but from anger. Not for herself, but for everyone who had ever been judged by their appearance. "My money is worth just as much as anyone else's." Franklin leaned in, voice dripping with disdain. "You're wasting my time. If you want to have a serious conversation, make an appointment and dress appropriately." The air in the showroom grew heavy. Even the Harringtons stepped back, visibly uncomfortable. A new voice rang out. "What's going on here?" It was the dealership owner, Howard Mason, drawn in by the commotion. Franklin straightened his tie. "Nothing at all, sir. I was just explaining the appointment policy." Howard looked at Maggie and said, "Miss Whitmore, isn't it?" "Maggie Whitmore," she confirmed. "There may have been a misunderstanding. Our clients typically understand the exclusivity of the vehicles here." "I understand perfectly," Maggie replied. "Your sales manager made your store's policy quite clear." Franklin cut in, his tone smug. "If you truly intend to buy, which I highly doubt, come back with financial proof and appropriate attire, these cars are for a certain class." A murmur spread across the room. Maggie turned and walked away in silence. Behind her, she could hear Franklin's voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Some people just don't know their place." She stepped outside and pulled out her phone to make a call. Whitmore Estate stood on a sprawling 5-acre property, nestled in the quiet, tree-lined suburbs of Boston, a place where old money never felt the need to prove itself. The estate exuded a kind of understated elegance, the kind that whispered rather than shouted. Its stone facade, ivy-covered walls, and weathered oak doors spoke of generations past, of legacy and restraint. There were no grand fountains, no gold gates or armed guards at the front. Just a gravel driveway winding through manicured gardens and the gentle rustle of autumn leaves brushing against leaded glass windows. To the casual passer-by, it might have seemed like a beautiful, if modest, family home. But behind those antique shutters, and beneath the quiet stillness of the estate, lay a billion-dollar fortune: art, land, trusts, and secrets passed down like heirlooms. The kind of wealth that didn't flaunt because it didn't need to. Whitmore Estate was not built for attention. It was built for permanence. Bartley Whitmore liked it that way. At 41, the tech inventor had revolutionized renewable energy storage, amassing a vast fortune while deliberately maintaining a private, unassuming lifestyle. As Maggie stepped into the home office, Bartley immediately looked up from his desk, setting his work aside. After 15 years of marriage, he knew every nuance of his wife's expressions, and something was off. "What's wrong, love?" he asked, stepping out from behind his desk and walking over to her. Maggie sank into the leather chair, the emotions of the morning flooding back. It was a Very educational morning, she said, forcing a faint smile. She recounted the entire story at the dealership, the dismissal, the humiliation, the blatant discrimination. As she spoke, Bardley's expression darkened. But he didn't interrupt her, simply listened, letting her unload every word. It wasn't about me, she concluded. I have the privilege of walking out of there still knowing my worth. But how many others face that kind of treatment every day, with no chance to prove they're just as deserving? Bardley nodded. Throughout their time together, what he admired most about Maggie was her unwavering compassion even when she herself was treated unjustly. So, what do you want to do? He asked. Part of me wants to let it go. Just buy the car somewhere else, she admitted. But then I thought about that young employee named Jack Keithy, one who treated me with respect, no matter how I was dressed. And I thought about all the people judged the way I was, with no voice to speak up for them. She looked straight at her husband. People like that need to learn that worth isn't measured by appearance. But I don't want revenge. I want them to realize it. Bardley nodded slowly, already forming a plan in his mind. I think I know a way to do both. Nothing too dramatic, Maggie warned, fully aware of her husband's protective instincts. No, I'm not going to buy the dealership and fire everyone, Bardley laughed. But maybe a small lesson could do some good. Together, they began mapping out a planet for retaliation, but for revelation. Something strong enough to shift perspectives, not just serve up a dose of comeuppance. The next morning, the weather was perfect. Franklin Monroe walked into Boston Luxury Motors with his usual confident stride, adjusting his signature blue tie. Yesterday's incident with the plain-dressed woman was now just a funny story he'd shared over drinks the night before a delusional nobody who thought she belonged in the world of luxury cars. The showroom gleamed under carefully arranged lights. After finishing the morning staff meeting, Franklin emphasized, "Remember, our time is valuable. We cater to a specific class of clientele. It's not discrimination, it's efficiency." Jackie, the young employee from the day before, remained silent throughout the meeting, his eyes betraying clear discomfort. Franklin made a mental note. He'd need to remind the kid about how to properly assess customers. At exactly 10:17 a.m., the deep, velvety growl of a high-performance engine rippled through the air like a low, regal drum roll. It echoed off the glass walls and polished floors of the showroom, cutting through conversations, halting footsteps, and silencing even the background jazz. For a brief moment, the entire dealership froze. Outside, a Rolls-Royce Phantom extended wheelbase glided to a stop with the kind of grace usually reserved for opera finales. The vehicle didn't park, it arrived. Every line of its elongated silhouette was pure authority, pure craftsmanship. But this wasn't just any Phantom. It was a specially customized edition, finished in a rare, color-shifting midnight blue that shimmered like liquid sapphire in the morning sun. Depending on the angle, it danced between obsidian, cobalt, and the faintest whisper of violet. The sunlight licked across its curves as if afraid to mar the surface. Estimated value? Over $1.2 million, not counting the bespoke interior, reportedly commissioned by a European atelier. It was the kind of car that didn't just speak of wealth. It spoke of power, the kind you didn't need to explain. Inside the showroom, jaws slackened. Phones dropped silently into pockets. Even the regional manager stepped out from his office, straightening his tie like a soldier bracing for inspection. Something or someone extraordinary had just arrived. Owner Howard Mason stepped out of his office, drawn by the sudden hush. "That a Phantom?" he asked. "Yes," Franklin confirmed, already hurrying toward the door. A uniformed chauffeur opened the car door with gloved hands. Stepping out was a tall man with a composed, commanding presence. His suit was impeccably tailored, so precise. It didn't need to flaunt itself. His salt and pepper hair was neatly combed, and he stood with a natural, effortless authority. Franklin instantly switched into high-tier sales mode. This was the kind of client who didn't just buy a car, but a fleet, a long-term relationship worth millions. "Welcome to Boston Luxury Motors," Franklin beamed. "I'm Franklin Monroe, sales manager. It's an honor to have you with us today." The man gave a slight nod, offering a polite but chilly smile. Bardley Whitmore. Franklin froze. The name sounded familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. Either way, that Rolls-Royce had already said enough. "A true honor, Mr. Whitmore. I'd be happy to show you some of our newest Arrivals limited editions." Bardley raised a hand, cutting him off. "I'm here for one specific car, the Midnight Blue Azure Coupe." Franklin lit up. "An excellent choice, sir. One of only 15 in the world. I'd be more than happy to—" "I know where it is," Bardley interrupted again. "My wife was here yesterday. She expressed interest in it." Franklin hesitated. "Your wife? I don't recall." Bardley's tone turned icy. "No, Mr. Thompson. You refused to assist her. Ellie Whitmore. She was wearing jeans and a white t-shirt. You told her she should check out the pre-owned section." Franklin's face went pale. Nearby, Jackie let out a quiet, sharp breath. "Mr. Whitmore, there may have been a misunderstanding." Howard Mason stepped in, sensing that something was wrong. "Is everything all right?" Bardley turned to him. "You're Mr. Mason?" "Yes, welcome to Boston Luxury Motors. My wife came here yesterday, hoping to buy the Azure Coupe as a birthday gift for her sister. But the way she was treated, I find it deeply concerning." Mason's expression shifted. "I apologize. I overheard part of the conversation yesterday, but wasn't aware of the full context." "The context," Bardley said evenly, "includes your sales manager deciding that someone like my wife didn't belong here simply because of how she was dressed." The entire showroom fell silent. Franklin stammered, but before he could speak, Jackie stepped forward. "Ms. Whitmore was treated unfairly," he said. "She was polite, asked clearly about the Azure, and was repeatedly dismissed just because of how she looked." Franklin shot a glare at Jackie, but it was too late. Bardley spoke calmly. "My wife is the founder and director of the Whitmore Foundation for Children with Disabilities. She's raised over $50 million for medical equipment and education programs. She chooses to dress simply because she believes in a life of humility. That's one of the reasons I love her." Howard Mason stammered, "Mr. Whitmore, this situation does not reflect the values of our dealership." "Words mean less than action, Mr. Mason," Bardley interrupted. "As for the Azure, I wasn't planning to buy just one car. I intended to replace our entire company fleet 7 vehicles, and possibly refresh my personal collection as well." Franklin staggered. Mason looked stunned. "However," Bardley continued, "I'm beginning to question whether this is the right place for such a significant investment." The showroom fell completely silent. Franklin looked on the verge of fainting. Howard Mason pleaded, "Mr. Whitmore, I don't know what to say to apologize properly. I assure you this is not how we do business. Please allow us the chance to make it right." Bardley paused for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Perhaps. There's still a way forward," he said. "But it'll take more than just selling me a car." "Anything," Howard said immediately. "We're willing." "Next month, the Whitmore Foundation is hosting a charity gala," Bardley explained. "The goal is to build a sports center for children with disabilities." Bardley turned to Franklin, who stood frozen in place. "I believe your presence at the event would be educational." Franklin swallowed hard. "Sir, not as a guest," Bardley clarified. As a volunteer, our foundation always needs help with setup, supporting the children so you can witness firsthand the work we do. The implication was crystal clear. This was no longer just about selling a car. It was a profound lesson in human worth. Bardley turned to Howard. And I think your dealership should consider training staff on unconscious bias. I know a few excellent experts. Howard nodded emphatically. We fully support that initiative. As for the car purchase, Bardley said, turning to Jacket, the young employee who had spoken up, I want you to handle all the paperwork, starting with the Azure for my sister-in-law. Jackie's eyes widened. Me? Thank you, sir. It's an honor. Good, Bardley replied. Now then, shall we talk about the company fleet? They walked together into Mason's office. Just before stepping inside, Bardley paused, running his hand gently along the body of the Azure. My wife has exquisite taste, doesn't she? Behind them, Franklin Monroe remained frozen in place. His perfect little world had just been turned upside down. He had revealed his true character not by how he treated the powerful, but by how easily he dismissed those he assumed weren't worth anything. The Whitmore Foundation's annual charity gala had transformed the Grand Boston Hotel into an evening of hope, light, and quiet miracles. Under the soft glow of chandeliers and the gentle swell of a live string quartet, the grand ballroom shimmered with elegance, not of wealth, but of purpose. Deep blue drapery framed the tall windows, while golden accents caught the candlelight like stars dotting a midnight sky. Children with disabilities, some in wheelchairs, others holding tightly to their parents' hands, moved through the room with wide eyes and excited smiles. Their families, dressed in their finest, mingled with donors in tuxedos and doctors in evening gowns, their conversations filled with gratitude, laughter, and possibility. No one was overlooked. No one was out of place. The atmosphere was warm, almost sacred, a rare moment where everyone, no matter their walk of life, stood on equal ground. Stories were shared. Tears were wiped away discreetly. Futures were quietly rewritten by the generosity of strangers. Tonight, the Whitmore name wasn't about legacy or money. It was about giving something priceless, dignity, care, and a chance at a life once thought out of reach. Near the entrance, Franklin Monroe, no longer in a sleek suit, but dressed in an event staff uniform, was guiding guests and pushing a young boy in a wheelchair. The past month had changed him completely. At first, volunteering had been an obligación, a price to pay to keep his job. But then something unexpected happened. Witnessing the daily challenges these children faced and the pride with which they overcame them began to shift something inside Franklin. Across the room, Maggie Whitmore, elegant in a simple midnight blue dress that matched the evening's tone, walked with quiet grace, the soft rustle of her hem barely audible beneath the hum of voices and clinking glasses. There were no jewels, no grand entrance, just her poised, composed, and completely present. Franklin spotted her immediately. Even now, fully aware of who she was, the heiress to the Whitmore legacy, the woman behind the Foundation's renewed vision, the one who had turned whispers into impact, he still felt a quiet awe stir within him. But it wasn't her wealth or reputation that disarmed him. It was her humility. There was no air of superiority in the way she greeted volunteers, no practiced charm in the way she knelt to speak to a child in a wheelchair. Just Maggie, with the same warm sincerity he remembered from the dealership, long before the headlines caught up with her name. She stopped just in front of him, her gaze calm, kind. "How are you finding it?" she asked gently, her voice low enough to make the moment feel personal, even in a room full of people. Franklin paused, then spoke honestly. "Humbling and necessary." Maggie nodded. "Lucas seems to like you," she said, gesturing toward the boy in the wheelchair. "He's teaching me how to play wheelchair basketball," Franklin chuckled, "and told me I'm really bad at it." Maggie burst out laughing. "He's a very honest coach." Franklin's expression turned serious again. "Ms. Whitmore, I know I've already issued a formal apology, but I want to say it directly. I'm truly sorry for how I treated you. There's no excuse." "You're right," Maggie replied without anger, just honesty. "The question is, what have you learned?" Franklin answered, "That a person's worth isn't measured by appearance, status, or wealth, and that everyone deserves respect until they prove otherwise, not the other way around." "A good lesson," Maggie acknowledged, "though a bit expensive, wasn't it?" Franklin nodded, recalling the fleet of vehicles the dealership lost because of him. "Worth every penny," he said sincerely. Across the room, Bardley walked over and gently placed a hand on his wife's shoulder. "Maggie just told me what you shared," she said. Bardley nodded. "I heard you've been actively involved in the adaptive sports program." "Yes, sir," Franklin replied. "Actually, I've signed up to keep volunteering even though the required hours are over. And I'm working with Mr. Mason to overhaul our dealership's client service policy. No more judging people by appearances." "Well done," Bardley said with a smile. Then, unexpectedly, he added, "By the way, that company fleet I mentioned, we're still in need of it. And I think this time, you should handle the deal. Jackie spoke highly of how you've been mentoring him." Franklin's eyes widened in surprise, then slowly filled with quiet, genuine emotion. "It would be an honor, Mr. Whitmore, truly." That evening, as the gala came to a close, Franklin stood at a distance, watching the Whitmore couple speak with every child, every family, not with fanfare or showmanship, but with quiet sincerity. He looked inward. Just a month ago, he had dismissed someone like Maggie Whitmore simply because she wore jeans and a t-shirt. Now he understood. True worth isn't found in designer labels, luxury cars, or lofty titles. As he helped Lucas back into his wheelchair after the photo session, the boy looked up and smiled. "Hey, Mr. Franklin, I think you're pretty cool for a grown-up." Franklin let out a laugh, his throat tight with emotion. "Coming from you, kid, that's the highest compliment I've ever received." And he truly meant it. We've all judged others by appearances at some point, haven't we? But as Franklin Monroe learned, when you look beyond the surface, you might just discover extraordinary people and life-changing opportunities.